Hey there, this is Carrie with Becky Higgins. When working with journaling cards in the Project Life app, each card has just one text box. This works beautifully in almost all situations, but some cards are designed in a way that makes it a bit trickier to have your text line up just right without a little bit of tweaking. I'm going to show you how using some of the different text options can help you adjust your journaling to fit these designs so they look great on your page. I've added a few cards to a layout that will show you some of the different types of designs that might require a little bit of extra work when working with the journaling. So we're going to go ahead and open that by tapping on the library, which is the lower left corner, and then tapping on that layout. You'll see in the upper left corner there is a card from the Brave Patient Collection. I'm going to go ahead and tap on that, and then the little icon will pop up showing the journaling box, and we'll tap on that. You'll see that the cursor is now on the far left side, and the words across the top have little bubbles next to them. The reason that that's a little bit tricky is because you're going to want to make sure that you get your spacing right, so it looks like you're actually marking those little bubbles. Now, of course, you can always skip over that part and you can mark those with a pen once you get your layout printed, but I'm just going to walk you through how it is that you can actually mark those by using your text tools and spacing. I personally like to use the little check mark emoji, but you can use X's or other symbols to mark the things off on lists like this. Let's tap on the emoji keyboard. And from there, I'm going to choose the check mark. Now that's going to put a little check mark next to the word that I want. Then I'm going to go back to my regular keyboard and use my space bar to be able to go and move over a few characters. Now you'll notice with the iOS keyboard that if you double space, it actually adds a period automatically. So I'm going to go back just a couple of spaces to remove that and then use my space bar again to move across the top so that I can add another check mark. And again, we're just using our space bar to move that so that the check mark will land about where we want it to mark those. I'm going to use my emojis again, another check mark, and then I'm going to go back to my keyboard and hit return. So it will go down one line and then just use my space bar to move over again. Now, in this case, you're going to be getting these as close to the little bubbles as you can. They may not line up perfectly, but if I were writing these in with my hand, they would not line up perfectly either. So this is going to be a really close one, and I think it looks great. From there, I'm going to go back to the regular keyboard. I'm going to hit return again. I'm going to space down one more. That's going to take it into my main journaling box where then I can add whatever journaling I want. I've got some already copied. I'm going to paste that in, and then I'm going to tap out of that. And we're done with that card. Next, we'll move to the card in the upper right pocket. And this is a card from the Magic Memories collection that has a numbered list. And you'll see different cards like this throughout our collections. When you're working with cards like this that are designed with a numbered list or like different bullet points, the vertical offset and line spacing are going to be your best friends in terms of tools for getting your text to line up. So we'll go ahead and tap on the icon to edit. And we'll enter our first point of journaling. After that, we will hit this return key until we get as close as we can to that second number. Now, it doesn't need to be perfect because we are going to play around with the line spacing here. So next, we're going to enter another bit of journaling. And because I know it is about Disneyland, I'm entering things that apply to that. All right, from there, we're going to look at our text options, starting with vertical offset. Now that's the fifth icon over from in the toolbar. It has a little arrow pointing up and down with a line in between it. Now vertical offset is going to shift your lines of text up or down on the card. It'll keep the spacing the same, but this way we can align our copy so that if we slide this, you can see how that just moves up and down the card. So going back to the top, if you're looking to fine tune, the easiest thing to do is tap on the little number to the right. But I slid that and I'm going to go ahead and just do the best that I can to line that up. All right. Now from there, you can see that the number 2 point of journaling is still a little bit higher than we want it to be. So that's where the line spacing is going to come into play. So let's tap that left arrow to go back to our menu bar. And then we will select the line spacing, which is the 2 lines with the little dashes in between. It's the 4th one over. We'll tap on that. And again, here you can see what that does, and that shifts the amount of space between the actual lines. So I'm going to slide that until I get that about where I want it, next to that number 2. Okay, and then we're going to go back to our return key, and double spacing seems about right on this card. That might be different from card to card, but again, playing with that vertical offset and the line spacing will make a big difference. Let's go ahead and enter a few more points of text. You can see that lines up pretty well with my 3. I'm going to hit my return key again. And not churro, so churros. All right, and just playing with those 2 tools, like I said, the vertical offset and the line spacing really helps when working with numbered lists. Now let's move just below that to a card that's from our school themed cards. So we'll tap on the X to the right to close out on our journaling, and then tap on that next card. And we'll go to the editing. Now this is a 3x4 card, and you can see on this card that there are 3 distinct spaces for journaling or for entering text. Because these are all centered down the middle of the card, I know that I want my journaling to be centered. So the first thing we're going to do is choose the centered alignment, which is that 6th icon over. It has the 3 lines that are lined up. And justification, I'm going to choose centered. That's going to automatically shift my cursor to the middle of my card. Then I'm going to tap the arrow to the left to go back to all of my choices. Next, we'll start entering our journaling, and then using our return key to move the cursor down the card until we get it about to where we want to enter the next point of journaling. And then return, return, return. Again, until we get that spaced about right. Now looking at that, it doesn't look too bad, but I do want to play just a little bit with the line spacing. So I can move those just a little bit more. And I think with the vertical offset as well, so I can shift that top line down just a touch. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go back to my line spacing. This is where just playing around with it a bit will help you to kind of get things right where you want them on your cards. And you can play with that spacing. Now I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and tap the X to quit my journaling. And we can move on to the last card. The last card design I'm going to show you is from the Brave Patient collection, and this is probably the most difficult type of card to work with because it's more like filling out a form. So it requires a bit more play with the different tools, everywhere from line spacing to the size of the text to the vertical offset to get things just right. But really, with a little bit of time and patience and practice, you can get these cards to look just perfect in your layouts. Let's start by tapping the edit icon to enter our journaling. And I'm actually going to start this by choosing a different font just for fun. It's the second icon over with the little cursive F. And I'm just going to tap that first font on the far left and then tap on the arrow to go back to all of my options. From there, I'm going to start entering my journaling. And then I'm going to use the return key to shift down. Now remember, these don't need to line up perfectly because we will be able to play around a little bit with the line spacing, the vertical offset, and all those tools that we've talked about. But for now, I'm going to get it as close as we can. You can see that that cursor is flashing right on top of that colon, and I do want that moved over to the right just a little bit, so I'll use my space bar to do that. And just continue entering text. Again, remember, it doesn't need to line up perfectly. We can play with the line spacing a little bit if we need to. I'm going to enter more information. And then because this has multiple spaces here, I'm going to just shift over or use my space bar, I guess. Again, remembering to go back and remove that period that gets added automatically. And then just keep spacing. I'm just trying to keep things as close to in line as I can in terms of spacing with the colons and things. Again, hitting return, entering the rest of my information, using my space bar, going back, removing my period. These are all just little things that with time and practice will become second nature as you're working with these types of cards. And of course, every once in a while, I tap my finger on an extra little character and I have to go back and delete it. So we'll just enter that information. And then hit down into that lower space. I'm going to just shift down a little bit. I've got some information that's already copied and ready to be pasted in. So we'll do that. And then we'll just play from there. So here, what I'm going to do is go back to my vertical offset. First of all, to adjust that first line. Using my slider, I'm going to get that first line of text to line up where I want it to. Now I can see that my second line of journaling is a little bit, whoa, look how fun that is to play. Again, remember that you can use tapping on that number to the right of the line instead of using the slider. It gives you a little bit more accuracy. And so from there, you can see now that second line is further down than I want it to be. So I'm just going to tap in front of that, and I'm actually going to delete that extra line that I put in there. Remember that I added those spaces. And now what I'm going to do is tap the arrow on the left of that menu bar, and I'm going to play with that line spacing a little bit. So I'm going to shift that line down so that it goes right down. And see how now that second line actually lines up really well with that colon, and so does my third line. So I'm going to go ahead and, oops, just teasing. Now you can see that the fourth line does not line up because I added a second space there. So I'm going to tap in front of the height that I added, and I'm going to just remove that extra line. Now again, we're too close to the colon, so I'll add a couple spaces there, and then I'll remove some from in front of the weight, just because, again, it's just playing and tweaking and getting things to look the way that you want them to. Now you'll notice in that lower section that that line spacing also extended so that it could space that out. Because it only has one text box, anytime you work with vertical alignment or line spacing or things like that, even the font and the size, it changes everything in that text box. But in order to line up everything on the form the way that I wanted it to, it had to alter that spacing in the bottom. To me, it personally doesn't bother me at all because I still think that everything on the card, looking at the whole, looks great. So I'm going to leave it just like that. Tap the X on the far right side and close out of that card. So there you have it, some simple tips for working with card designs in the Project Life app that are less straightforward than your basic journaling card. While adding text to these cards may require a little bit more patience and time to make them look just right, using the different type tools really can give you great results with just a little extra effort. Thanks for watching.